grab your scanner, grab your coffee, and let's go diagnosing. So I'm working on an 01 Silverado today, and this is my truck. Symptoms of this thing: I was on my way to go pick up a workbench, and it started stuttering, bucking a little bit, and then come up to a stop sign, stall. I could start it, give it a little bit of throttle, it started a bit better. Off of idle, so if I'm in like 1500 RPM, it runs okay. However, it won't idle, so that's kind of not ideal. So let's scan it and let's have a look at what's going on. Helps you turn the key on. You want to make sure at this point you got a scanner that's half decent. You don't need all the fancy features of this one. I do this a lot, so obviously it was worth the investment. However, just even one of these small little dongle type scanners works pretty nicely. This one's got live data. It's like $50 a year Canadian to subscribe to it to keep it up to date. Which, you know, a lot of people kind of balk at that, but to me, if you have to have your vehicle scanned once, that's like $150. So if you scan your vehicle once every 3 years and you're able to fix it off of that, to me, you can't afford not to have this. Okay, let's see what we got in the report. We're just going to skip all of this. Skip. And what do we have? P0300 engine misfire detected, and we also have a P1404 exhaust gas recirculation closed position performance. So what does that all mean? Well, the P0300 random misfire in all cylinders, which is the symptom of the EGR closed position performance. So we have an issue with the EGR valve, and it's at this point where a lot of the code scanners are just going to parts cannoneer EGR valve right at the truck, and you're a few $100, and that'll probably fix the problem. But since we're not a parts cannoneer, or at least on YouTube I can edit this nice and pretend like I'm not a parts cannoneer.
I don't know why I just said that. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Let's have a look. Let's dive deeper. See what's going on. And I already know what my fault codes are. This is where the data stream is really, really handy. So you want to have any scan tool that has data, and I also like the special functions in the actuation test, because in here we could actually check out, well, not in this one, engine output controls. Whoop. Yes, look at that. We have an EGR solenoid test. So I could actually test my EGR valve, which is pretty cool. But before we get into that, let's head into our live data, or our data stream. Engine, and let's look at our EGR data since we have that. And I'm just going to hit select all and go. One of the advantages of the nicer scan tools is you can put more data PIDs. PID stands for parameter identification. You can put more of those on the screen at a time and your scan tool won't bog down. In our live data, desired EGR position is 0%. Where is the actual EGR position? Wow, look at that. EGR position is at 89%, whilst our desired position is at 0%. So that indicates to me EGR valve is stuck open. And I've seen that a few times. This truck was nice enough to give us a code saying that there was EGR position issues. I've seen it before where we get a P0300 random misfire, and you can feel the misfire, but there's no data other than that. So you go into the live data, and you have a look through what everything is, what everything says, and there is no spec for live data for everything. So you need to go through it, familiarize yourself with it, and kind of get used to what you're expecting to see. Because I've had that before where I see that massive EGR position, or it's stuck open, and that's causing a random miss affecting all the cylinders. So let's get under the hood and let's have a look at what's going on. Thankfully, the EGR valve was pretty easy to unbolt on this one, and look at what we got right there. That is a giant chunk of crap stuck right inside the valve. Ever so carefully pull that out. Look at that giant hunk of rust that was in there. Where did that come from? That is not ideal. I'm glad that that didn't go back in through the intake. So if we look at our EGR position sensor now, it's showing 0%. So check this out. As I am adjusting the EGR position, our live data tells us where it's at. So that's how the ECM was able to determine that there was a flow issue. That's pretty cool. So let's check out, since we're in here, let's go back under the special functions and see what we can test. So we go under our actuation test. So this is a bi-directional control, and I would like engine output controls, and let's go to our EGR solenoid. Now check this out. If you pay attention there, you can see that my EGR valve is opening as I command it open. And what this has verified is that my EGR valve is working, the wiring to the EGR valve is working, and the engine computer is working, commanding my EGR valve. So I know that that was just a chunk of rust that was stuck in here. It was causing all my problem, and everything is still operational. I'm going to clear my fault codes, put a new gasket on that, and put it all back together. One more thing I want to look at is where did that chunk of rust come from? So I've got my borescope here, and we're going to go down into the EGR valve, or into the port, and see if we can see where that rust came from. Okay, I'm in video mode, and we are recording. The articulating function on this is quite handy. Oh, look at that. That's not ideal. A lot of rust in there. And I don't think I'm going to be able to jam this all the way in. Around that corner. Slightly less than ideal that I could not get my borescope all the way down in the manifold through these mends, but with the amount of rust that we saw inside this tube, I think that there's some rust building up in those manifolds. So maybe that'll give me an excuse to put headers on this, and then I could do a video on how to extract broken exhaust studs. That's a fun video that everybody wants to watch. Now, I'm an anti-sneeze kind of guy, where I know that I'm going to be the next one pulling this apart, so I'm just going to take a little bit here and put it on my bolts. Do, however, pay attention to how much of this you're putting on, because like herpes, it gets everywhere, and it's hard to get rid of. Snap. Okay, let's plug this back in and verify our repair. Okay, back into my powertrain control module, fire the vehicle up, and it runs. I like that. Now let's see here. Let's take a look at our data stream. What do I have for misfire data? Okay, here's my cycles of misfire data. So how many times it's read or monitored or run through. Do I have individual PIDs? There's my EGR position showing at 0, which I like. And there's all my misfire counters and my history. So that's good. That looks like the P0300 went away, which we were expecting it to do. I'm going to brake torque this a little bit. See under load if it's picking anything up. I do have a few little misfires in there. but nothing significant. And it is nice that it does keep a history on each of the cylinders. Well, it's something I'm going to have to look into. Let's head back into our actuation tests. And over here on our EGR, command state none. Vehicle's running pretty well, so that's what it's supposed to be doing. And if we increase it, the vehicle should start to misfire and run a little bit rough. And the more we increase it, the worse it's going to run. Until it should eventually stall out or come close to it. And then if we give it some throttle, even though it's got EGR, it's okay. Your EGR is not supposed to be open at idle. It's supposed to open up off of idle to then recirculate exhaust gas back into your intake, and essentially what that does is that lowers the displacement of the engine, because EGR, exhaust gas, is inert. I think it's aborted the test. So our inert exhaust gases won't burn. So my 6-liter engine with exhaust gases recirculated back into it becomes slightly smaller. Yeah, now it's just ignoring my test. However, we've just verified that this system is working. We fixed the problem, and if this was a customer's vehicle, it's an expensive repair to look into that exhaust manifold, but this truck sits a lot. Where did all that rust come from? Well, over 20 some odd years of primarily sitting and then just doing the occasional trip to, you know, pull a trailer or pull a boat somewhere. Rust is built up on the inside of the manifold, so we can pull them off and sandblast them, or I think the more responsible repair would be a full-on exhaust, front to back, stainless steel, Flowmaster, double, whatever. Just put on some fancy headers. We could call it a day. That's a good reason to spend $2 or $3 grand, isn't it? Alright, so that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below and let me know what else you'd like to see.